Hi, I'm Peter J. Ray. Welcome. Today's topic is Resalest Remarkable Books, number 67. The first book today is Cowards: What Politicians, Radicals, and the Media Refuse to Say by Glenn Beck, 2012. This is an outstanding book. My buddy Glenn Beck, the man I admire most in American politics today, and whose opinion matters the most to me. I like to joke that I let Glenn Beck do my thinking for me, and it's not true, but I am interested in his thoughts on whatever issues come up or different politicians because I respect him, and I think he has the right attitude. Attitude is so important. He's pro-American. He believes in our country, and he uses American history, I think, in a very productive way to support conservative principles. This is a book on his thoughts on progressives, libertarians, George Soros, this very wealthy man who has an influence on American politics today, and not a good one. Illegal immigrants, the media, Islamic jihad, education, socialism, and the intelligence revolution. Glenn Beck believes in small government, capitalism, free enterprise, the importance of character for individuals, and paying down the national debt, which was $18 trillion when he wrote this book. Now I believe it's $21 trillion. And he makes a very good case that the government, we've been on a long trend. The government grows bigger and bigger and bigger. And sooner or later, you get to the point where we could become a communist country. The whole idea of communism is that the government controls everything, and then freedom is lost, and then initiative is lost, and then we become slaves, and then we'll be poor. So let's not let that happen. And so he makes the case. What should government do? We have to have government. There are certain things government needs to do. He talks about four things. I believe the national defense is one, weights and measures, patents, and foreign diplomacy. So, and other than that, you could say everything else should be privatized because government just doesn't do a good job. They don't have the pressure to succeed that private industry has. So they tend to be incompetent and wasteful and abuse their power because, they won't go out of business. That's government. They have a natural advantage when there's competition between the government and private industry because they have power. And the public, from what I can tell so far, the general public is okay with this trend as politicians keep saying, oh, let's do this, I'll do this. And what they don't say is, everything that they are going to do takes tax dollars or is going to increase the debt, which is, undermining our financial position as a country. And I think it would be nice if a politician would say, this is what I'm not going to do, or we got to stop doing these things because everything we're doing, we're taking money from the people. And we're really making it very tough on business to succeed through all these regulations. You have to waste so much time, trying to comply with the government. A lot of it's nonsensical, and it's just the exercise of power. And the individuals in government, they have jobs. Everyone has their self-interest. And as long as the general public is okay with the general trend of increasing government, then it's going to continue. And so that's why I admire Glenn Beck so much. He's a very brave man because, and he's been condemned, I'm sure, by liberals and leftists as a terrible human being, a monster. And he's very brave. Courage is really one of the most important qualities we need. Along with, we need to have knowledge, we need to care. So I think Glenn Beck is one of the greatest heroes in the United States today, dedicated to our country and trying to save democracy and believing in our country, that we're a good people and that we're not perfect. So anyway, I recommend all of his books. The next book is Our Country's Presidents by Frank Friedel, National Geographic, 1977. This book is about the presidents from George Washington to Jimmy Carter. It has good write-ups and outstanding pictures and photographs, a fine reference. I use this book and others for this long project that I started doing, researching American presidents. So far on YouTube, we've done videos on presidents from George Washington to John Quincy Adams, and I intend to continue with that long project. And this is a book that's been helpful. The next book is The 5,000-Year Leap: A Miracle That Changed the World by W. Cleon Skousen, 1981. Outstanding book. It's recommended by Glenn Beck. That's why I read it. And this book promotes America, the Constitution, Christianity, capitalism, and limited government. He has quotes by George Washington, John Adams, and Thomas Jefferson. Now, the really, I think, an important question that needs to be asked is the United States a good country or a bad country? And, a lot of people, attitude is so important. And I think a lot of people around the world, and I think it's considered fashionable to be anti-American. To be pro-American is kind of like square. And in our country, in the United States, there are a lot of people who think, oh, we're a bad country. Look at all the bad things we did. We had slaves and we hurt the Indians and we're destroying the environment and we've been mean to gays and women were second class. So all the endless things. But now this book is very pro-American, talking about how, our country has had it has been a positive force in the world through certain principles. Freedom of religion is one of the big ones. Capitalism, which is based on freedom. Individuals having initiative to start businesses, work where they want to work, hire who they want to hire, and make products or services that they want to do, and how they want to do it. And democracy, in which the government is accountable, and limited government, not just this. We've really gotten away from that. So this is a wonderful book. I highly recommend it. The next book is Thomas Jefferson, Author of America, by Christopher Hitchens, 2005. Tremendous book. I really liked the part about when Thomas Jefferson sent the U.S. Navy and the U.S. Marines to the Mediterranean Sea to fight North African pirates who had been attacking American ships and actually European ships for centuries, and kidnapping Americans into slavery. And from the Marine Corps anthem, from the hulls of Montezuma, that refers to the Mexican War, to the shores of Tripoli, that's what this is talking about. That's the reference. Tripoli, which is now Libya, North Africa. So early on, we had this, up till now, with the Muslim countries have become powerful based on oil money, wealth from petroleum, and now they're sort of going on the offensive, like promoting Islam and their cultural ideas, which are very often or mostly really contrary to American principles of freedom of religion and so forth. And so anyway, Thomas Jefferson, one of the founding fathers, and this is another fine biography, a story about him. The next book is George Washington, The Founding Father by Paul Johnson, 2005. I was on researching Washington. I was reading a lot of books on him to prepare these talks that I did on him. This book has more really good information on the man whom they said, quote, unites all hearts. God bless George Washington. Paul Johnson is a highly respected historian. And he's another guy. He was, during the bad old days of fighting in the Cold War, when communism was a real world threat, and I think still is because it's so seductive and attractive. And Paul Johnson wrote books, which really were honest about what was the truth. Okay, communism, sounded good. All these ideals sounded good to idealistic people. But what was the reality of what was going on in the Soviet Union, in Eastern Europe, and China, and so forth? Anyway, so this is another fine book by Paul Johnson, he's a tremendous historian. The next book is Founding Father, Rediscovering George Washington by Richard Brookhiser, 1996. Yeah, to me, George Washington is the most important person in American history. And if you're interested in learning about him, there's so many really tremendous books. This is another one. Very thoughtful account of George Washington's life and his significance. And Richard Brookhiser is another tremendous historian. And there's a line he said in this book. He said, "The life of George Washington can inspire anyone who is willing to study it." Yeah, that's the thing I love about history. History's not going away. History is always there, and it's for anyone who's interested, and there's inspiration there's power, and there's wisdom. There's so much in history. If we're willing to take the time, very often people have no interest in. It's very tragic because of, I guess, because of their, they didn't have a history teacher when they were growing up who inspired them, who inspired a love of history, which is tragic. In fact, very often it's the opposite. They're like, oh, I hate history. It's tragic because history there's just so much there. It's entertaining. It's interesting. And I think it can help us today, inspire us today to do our part. If you read about George Washington, what he did, the amazing things he did to help get our country started. Now, we have to do our part today, and in his life can inspire us to do our part so that when we die, that our country will continue, our wonderful country, the United States of America. The next book is The Real George Washington, The True Story of America's Indispensable Man by J.A. Perry, Andrew M. Allison, and W. Cleon Skousen at the National Center for Constitutional Studies, 1991. This book has 613 pages. It's an outstanding book, and I found this book extremely helpful because it's positive, it's simple, it's sequential, lengthy. The great man's life, George Washington, in order from birth to death. A lot of books, they kind of jump around, and you don't even know what year they're talking about. And if you want to know a person's life, you really need to go through it year by year. And this book really helped me a lot because it did that. And it wasn't that it wasn't endlessly analytical. It's just a lot of good information as through the the time periods, the different things that happened in his life over the years. So I really recommend it. The next book is Washington's Secret War, The Hidden History of Valley Forge by Thomas Fleming, 2005. Another outstanding book. That tough winter. This book is about that tough winter of 1777 to 1778 in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, near Philadelphia. The American Army, during the War of Independence, the American Revolution, led by George Washington, hard times. Talk about hard times. Unbelievable. Freezing and starving. Some of the soldiers were freezing and starving. And then on top of that, the political conniving that was going on to oust George Washington. There were individuals who wanted to replace him, for their own selfish interests. Men who really were not great leaders. And so that was one of the great victories in the war, that did not happen, that Washington kept military power. Because if Washington had been replaced as commander of the Continental Army, I don't think we could have won the War of Independence. So anyway, endurance. This is I think that was a big part of the success. Sometimes in life, bad things happen. You do your best, and everything's going wrong. And then the main thing is you don't give up. You do your best every day, go to bed, and then the next day do it again and keep going. And this is what Washington did. And boy, did he and the Army have humongous hard times during the war. And but after 8 years, we won, and the British finally gave up because they said, "All right, fine." And then that gave us the freedom to create our own government, and which we did. And we couldn't have done that if we were British colonies. So this is an amazing book, and it's a very inspiring history. Baron Friedrich von Steuben is in this book. He was this German fellow who came to volunteer with the American Army, and he played a major role in the war because the troops were not. They didn't have. They hadn't been well trained in terms of marching and work, and maneuvering in coordination with each other. So in battle, very often, guys would bump into each other, and they would panic, and they would lose battles. So he got these guys really drilled so that when battles came, they could work together and march together and do everything properly in coordination, and so that. And that led to the victory at Monmouth Courthouse in the spring of 1778. So Baron von Steuben played a major role in American history, this German volunteer. God bless George Washington and all the fellows who were at Valley Forge, who many of whom died, froze and starved at Valley Forge, and the guys who lived, who helped us achieve our independence against Great Britain. The next book is Passionate Sage, The Character and Legacy of John Adams by Joseph J. Ellis, 1993. The second president of the United States, John Adams, they called him the Colossus of Independence. He saved us from war with France in 1798 as president and paid the price politically and was defeated for re-election. Very interesting man. Joseph J. Ellis is a thoughtful writer. This is a really good job. And yeah, John, wow, what a life, John Adams. And he's the guy, before the war, and actually even after the war started, who kept giving speeches and writing letters and writing newspaper articles saying the same thing, that we needed to fight a war of independence. And we could win that war. And we needed to, and therefore we needed to start writing state constitutions so we could govern ourselves. Other guys said, "Oh no, we can't fight Great Britain. They're too powerful. Anyway, they're not that bad. And if we fight them, we're going to lose." And no, so that's why everyone knows that Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence, but not that many people know that it was really John Adams who influenced public opinion to favor, yes, let's do it. Let's fight the war, and we can win. So he believed in our country. Talk about a patriot. And then he got French support in the Revolution, French naval support, and Dutch loans. An amazing man, John Adams. The next book is Infidel by Ayaan Hirsi Ali, 2007. This is an amazing book. The author is a woman who grew up in Somalia in East Africa as a Muslim and eventually moved to the Netherlands in Europe. She was elected to the Dutch Parliament, so she got into politics in the Netherlands, but now lives in the United States. She is one of the strongest leaders in the anti-Islamic jihad movement. And she takes a very strong position. She believes that Islam is backward, that it condones the abuse of women, opposes democracy, and prevents Muslims from advancing. She tried to wake up the Dutch people to the cultural evil in their country, apparently unsuccessfully. And so she talks about these very unpleasant things like female genital mutilation, which the clitoris of Muslim girls is cut out and so they can't have sexual pleasure. They think this is the right thing to do. It's a cultural thing. They apparently in some of these countries, a woman can't get married if this isn't done to her, but it leads to horrific health problems. And it's still happening actually in Europe, and it's happening in the United States. Honor killings. When a girl or a young woman is killed by her brother or her father for doing things which they think are wrong, but really are, they're living the lives of European women or American women because that's where they live. And the hatred of Jews, she talks about the Muslim hatred of Jews, Christians, and non-Muslims. God bless Ayaan Hirsi Ali, very brave woman, and wow, what an amazing thing, and I'm sure she's considered. Yeah, that's why this title is the title of the book, Infidel. An infidel is a Muslim word or concept, like an enemy. She's considered an enemy of Islam. And therefore, I'm sure there's a price on her head, but she's still alive. She still speaks. She's still writing. She's written a number of books. Very brave woman who talks about this very sensitive, painful, controversial, dangerous topic of Muslim cultural practices, which are more and more relevant as the Muslim population grows in Europe and America. And a lot of people, she's been accused of promoting hatred of Muslims, and it's not true. I've been accused of that. These are cultural things. I feel sorry for Muslims myself because, they're born into this. And, and culture is powerful. And, a lot of good Muslims have been killed for saying like, hey, let's be friends with Israel, or let's, or they'll say things like the United States is a good country, or let's have democracy. Let's have freedom of religion. They end up getting killed. So naturally, people are scared. And now there's a tendency for good Muslims to be quiet, even if they don't believe in these things. A lot of them, some of them do, because they're overwhelmed by that's the power of culture, which very often we don't realize when you just live with people in your culture. You don't realize there are other ways of living. The next book is The Death of Money: The Coming Collapse of the International Monetary System by James Rickards, 2014. Yeah, wonderful book, amazing book. And this book predicts an economic catastrophe, which the author believes is coming soon. And it's based on now the $21 trillion U.S. national debt. He talks about the crimes of the big bankers and the Federal Reserve, which he and others believe has not been acting in the public interest. The folks losing their money through bank failure and inflation. And one of the things Rickard promotes is buying gold. He believes that, actually gold has kept its value over the centuries. So this book gets into this whole issue, and we'll see what's going to happen. And, I think, what are you going to do, right? I think the best thing we can do is prepare ourselves spiritually. You never know what's going to happen. Who knows what's going to happen in this world. But anyway, this is an interesting book that gets into the whole financial issues of today's world and what could happen. The next book is Obama's America by Dinesh D'Souza, 2012. Another outstanding book. Dinesh D'Souza is an amazing immigrant from India who he's very pro-American, pro-capitalism, and pro-democracy. He talks about former President Barack Obama's parents and their anti-American bias. Barack Obama Sr. and Ann Dunham. His father was an African, and he was an anti-colonial Kenyan. That's in East Africa. He grew up when Kenya was a British colony. And his mother, who married, she was with his father, this Kenyan fella, and he married her first husband was Barack Obama's father from Kenya, East Africa. Then she married an Indonesian and settled in Indonesia, which is in Southeast Asia, Muslim country. And so anyway, this book talks about Barack Obama's friends like Bill Ayers, Jeremiah Wright, and he makes the case that he believes Barack Obama is American and wants to weaken America. And he increased the U.S. debt more than any previous president. God bless Dinesh D'Souza, a man who is serving his country well. I admire Dinesh D'Souza so much. He's another very brave person, along with Glenn Beck and Ayaan Hirsi Ali. Very brave man, and he went to actually spent time in prison, because Barack Obama had power, and the court system is subject to political influence. So, the other thing he talks about, that Barack Obama had this, this sort of a Muslim upbringing. Some people say, "Oh, Obama's a Muslim." Well, he's actually not a practicing Muslim, but he was as a boy. He went to mosque for like 4 years in Indonesia as a boy, and so I think he tends to be nostalgic and have some tender feelings for Muslims. And I think, to me, Barack Obama was a guy who saw the United States as this powerful country, and we're big and strong and a bully, and all these other countries are poor. So, his father was African, and his mother lived most of her life outside the U.S. and so it's an interesting topic. I admire Dinesh D'Souza is one of these guys, has a lot of political influence today, and I believe in him, and I give him a lot of credit. Here he's an immigrant who's learned American history and playing a very productive role, and he's a very brave guy. The next book is Agenda 21 by Glenn Beck and Harriet Park, 2012. This is an outstanding book. It's a futuristic novel. It depicts an America in which environmental fascists take power and enslave Americans, eliminate private property, religion, history, and democracy. So this book is a warning to preserve American freedom. Hopefully, let's do our best, see what we can do. That's all you can do in life. And I think the thing is, democracy is based on respect. And very often people don't respect each other. And the question is, why should we? And I believe it comes back to the belief in God, that God exists, or Divine Mother, as I like to call God. And God created every human being, and we're all brothers and sisters. And as children of God, we all deserve respect. And to me, this is what democracy is based on. Now, if you're an atheist, then there's actually no compulsion, no need to respect other people unless you just happen to believe in it or you're a good person. And you could say to yourself, oh, this is an issue, I think, with leftists, liberals who think, oh, there's all these stupid people. They think country people or racist people or bad people, and they think, oh, they don't deserve respect. And then when you take that away, you think, oh, certain people don't deserve respect. Then you could say, well, democracy is not a good idea, because why are we giving the vote to stupid people? This is the leftist argument or thinking, I believe. And therefore, so they think they want to have a revolution, communist revolution, which actually goes way, way back. And they all have these, again, a lot of it sounds good to them, because they think, oh, we need to protect the environment and we need to do all these good things. But to do that, we're going to take power away. Well, they think it's fine. We're going to take power away from stupid people and these country people and so forth. So anyway, we have to stop that. The conservatives, we have to save our country. We can't just, I feel sorry for some of these European countries. They're just being so passive, and they're going to lose their power. They're going to lose their country as the Muslim population grows. And the thing is, you got to believe in yourself. Yes, okay, let's be honest. We obviously haven't been perfect. There was slavery. We know all these different things that were wrong. But overall, I think the United States is a good country, and democracy should be saved, and freedom of religion, and capitalism, which is based on freedom. Not many people seem to believe in capitalism, but it's created our wealth, the wealth of the United States and of the West. So anyway, interesting book. The next book is Founders by James Wesley Rawls, 2012. Very interesting book. This is a novel about a future with an economic collapse, or after an economic collapse. 150 million Americans dead from starvation, disease, and violence. The novel's characters are former soldiers who are knowledgeable about guns, trucks, horses, and are Christian. It's interesting to speculate about a future world of severe hard times. You hear a lot of stories. They have these. There's different things. There's actually I have it on TV. These people, they call them people who are preparing for the future world, and there are different things you can do, but and that's fine. The thing that I choose to do is just to try to become more knowledgeable. I practice meditation. I think spirit. It's hard to know what exactly the conditions we will face. It's good if we know how to grow food. I think agricultural knowledge would be helpful, and because this could happen if we have an economic disruption. And it's good to be physically fit, and I think spiritually strong so we can get along. And if there is an economic disaster, and then people are going through hard times, and so that we can get along with each other. And so anyway, well, it appears we're out of time. Thank you so much for watching. I really, really appreciate it. God bless you. God bless America, the Philippines, and the whole world. And I'll see you next time.